This little guy is Topo. Topo is the boss of Dino Mountain, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg's third world. All you need to know about this fella is that this mole is considered to be one of Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg's most notorious boss fights. But why is that? On this channel I have covered Sand Ruins Mission 2, a level that was notorious for its sheer difficulty, and I have also covered the boss fight against moles, which was notorious for essentially being a lottery machine. So what makes Topo stand out? Well, the truth is that he doesn't. Topo is memed on by the community for being a long, uneventful auto-scroller. Most boss fights in Billy Hatcher have strategies that can speed up the battle considerably, but for most of the game's speedrunning history, Topo has been one of the bosses that has not received much help. That was the case until recently, where Topo finally received a new strategy. This new strategy not only saved time in a boss fight that needed all the help it can get, it is also the biggest individual discovery in Billy Hatcher speedrunning in over 3 years. So join me as we discuss how speedrunners fixed Billy Hatcher's slowest boss fight. It's no secret that Topo sucks. This boss just lacks sauce. Most marathon runs for this game just use this guy as an opportunity to get donations read out, and who can blame them?
Let's get some donations in throughout this entire boss fight because this is a very slow fight and...
In order for you to understand why this boss is so boring, let's once again jam out to Bang Bang, Big Horns Explosion and go through your typical Topo fight. Topo is a unique boss fight that takes place on a donut-shaped arena. Topo himself rides on top of this enormous bone dinosaur and will attack Billy from the safety of the outer perimeter of the arena. Topo starts the boss fight off by running around the arena. When he comes to a stop, he will initiate his first attack. Topo will command the dinosaur to fling a barrage of molten rocks, more commonly known as spicy meatballs, onto the arena. These can be avoided by tilting the camera to the sky and moving out of the way of the incoming meatballs. These meatballs also drop the fruit required to grow your egg to deal more damage. In this phase, Topo fires 2 lots of spicy meatballs. After this phase ends, Topo will run around the arena again, and when he is close to Billy, the dragon will slam its head into the arena and fling Topo to the other side. During this time, Topo is vulnerable, so speedrunners will use this opportunity to maximize damage dealt to the boss. Topo is a boss with damage caps, meaning that we can only deal a certain amount of damage per phase before the boss becomes invulnerable to damage again. This restricts us from outright killing the boss. After the vulnerability ends, Topo will get back on the dinosaur and begin to run around the arena again. Once the running ends, Topo will do his next attack, the Wall of Fire. The dinosaur will shoot a scary looking, screen covering wall of fire towards Billy that is really difficult to... Oh, that's it? Yeah, this phase is a joke. The idea is to have Billy hide behind his egg to avoid the wall, but as Billy is behind the egg most of the time anyway whilst he's moving, this attack rarely connects. After the Wall of Fire, that's basically the entire boss fight. Next up is more running, followed by spicy meatballs again. This time there are 3 lots of meatballs to avoid, followed up by another head slam into vulnerability. Then after that, Topo will run around the arena again, shoot another wall of fire, run around the arena even more, and then do the final meatball phase, firing 4 waves of hot rocks this time. Once Topo is flung off the dinosaur this time, you are able to finish him off, collect the Emblem of Courage and finish the level. So you can probably see why this boss is so boring now. It's very repetitive and takes ages to complete, especially when speedrunners want to go turbo? Topo basically acts as the antithesis of this. A slow-paced boss fight in a fast-paced game? No thank you. You might think that the meatballs pose a threat. What if Billy accumulates too much damage? What if the egg pops? Well, Topo never seems to deal enough damage over the course of the fight to threaten Billy's health. Even the sloppiest of fights leave Billy in a healthy enough state. As for the egg, popping it does suck, but you still finish the fight with the same amount of phases as normal. In fact, the only phase where this really matters is the final one, so the time lost from an egg pop is negligible. The arena is surrounded by fire, which is an insta-kill, but falling into the lava is a massive skill issue, and is a very rare occurrence.
No egg pop on Topo? What world is this?
Sorry, Till. Such a funny clip, man. I couldn't help but include it. Another issue to mention is that there is a lot of randomness involved when it comes to Topo running around the arena. The distance that Topo travels during the running phase is determined by RNG, which can cause runners to gain or lose time depending on the distance that the game chooses to make them travel. So not only is this boss slow, it's also inconsistent to a degree. But yeah, Topo is just this boss fight where speedrunners can switch their brain off and wait for the boss fight to end, which is never great unless you're looking for that calm before the storm that is the rest of the speedrun. Even though Topo was a giant auto-scroller, it didn't stop the speedrunning community from finding ways to speed up the boss even if it was by the slightest margin. The first time save discovered was quite a simple one. When Topo runs around the arena leading up to the head slam, he needs to travel a certain distance before registering Billy for the attack. If he hasn't travelled the minimum distance required, he will keep running and ignore Billy until the requirement is met. Only then will the dinosaur slam his head when meeting Billy. So what speedrunners did to make the most of this was to calculate these requirements for each phase and position Billy in such a way that would cause Topo to slam his head as early as possible. The positions do change slightly between phases, but they're generally between 7 and 9 o'clock if you consider the arena as a giant clock. Look, I've struggled to explain this one as it is, just go with it. This was how speedrunners did the fight for many years, until October of 2019, where a devilishly handsome speedrunner found a new time save.
No! That's not going in the video. That's not going in the video.
One thing that always sucked about Topo was that the randomness of the walking patterns in conjunction with the shape of the arena made the whole fight very disorienting. As we were getting Topo flung in the optimal locations, this resulted in the Emblem of Courage spawning in seemingly random locations in relation to Billy's position. Sometimes the emblem would spawn right next to Billy. Sometimes it would be on the opposite side of the arena, which then resulted in an awkward walk of shame to go collect it. This was until one runner decided to look at the floor texture below the emblem and hatched a plan that would likely save time. The emblem spawn location was always known to be static, it was just that Billy's ending position varied in each attempt. If there was a way to control where Billy was when the emblem spawned, then we could remove the slow walk of shame from the boss fight. Thankfully the solution was easy. The arena's floor does not contain any repeating texture, so what this runner did was take note of where the emblem spawned and made note of the textures on the opposite side of the arena. This is because the plan was to have Topo be defeated on the spot that the emblem spawned, and to do that we need him to be flung from the opposite side of the arena. The texture for the location where we wanted Topo to be flung was easily recognisable, and the strategy was simple. Play the boss fight as normal until the final Topo fling. Before we would have gone to the earlier spot to fling Topo, but now the plan was to stand by this texture instead, no matter where it was located. Topo moves faster than Billy, so doing this strategy always resulted in time save, but the amount is variable. The strategy was named the Kai spot after the guy that discovered it. I wonder who that could be. And that was basically all there was to Topo for a long time. Dodge meatballs, earliest possible head slams, and a head slam on the Kai spot to finish. It was thought that nothing more could really be done with the boss. This boss was considered to have been solved. As cool as it would be to find something that sped it up, realistically it seemed unlikely. The game has a slight flaw in its damage cap system which players can use to their advantage, but before I explain that, I need to explain the egg damage system. A small egg and a stage 1 egg deal 1 point of damage. A stage 2 and stage 3 egg deal 2 points of damage, and a max sized egg deals 3 damage. You can do 1 or 2 points of damage more than the damage cap allows by hitting the boss with a small egg until just before the damage cap is reached, and then you can switch to a 2 or 3 damage egg to overflow the damage past the cap. This is known as damage overflow abuse, but unfortunately it didn't seem to have much use in Topo. This would be where the video would end, but I wouldn't have made a documentary on this absolute bozo if something new wasn't found. The Billy speedrun has been through a drought lately when it comes to innovative new strategies. The game is still active, but the rate in which new developments made have been rather low. For example, the biggest innovation in recent memory was a 1-second time save in the Circus 2 boss fight, and that was over a year ago. The last big discovery was a strategy known as ECSS, which was found in 2021, which saved around 30 seconds over the course of the run. Who knew when the next big discovery would be made? Well, on Wednesday the 9th of October 2024, during what I would have considered a pretty terrible week for myself, I decided to boot up a stream and mess around with Billy for a couple of hours. During that stream, Realmim, one of Billy's best strat finders, came to me mentioning that he had found a new time save of around 4.5 seconds. This immediately piqued my interest, especially when he mentioned that this time save took place in the Topo boss fight.
Can we just not talk about that one?
So hello, I'm Realmim. I'm an emulator runner for Billy Hatcher and a glitch hunter and task creator, and I've ran all the 3 main categories in Billy, and I've ran most of the ALs trying to get top 3 in them.
Realmim is one of Billy Hatcher's greatest strat finders. Over the 3 or so years that Mim has been playing the game, he has found some of the coolest strategies to ever grace the game. One strategy that Mim found was the aforementioned innovation in the Circus 2 boss fight. Mim has also found glitches such as bomb hyperspeed and pause champing, which are absolutely busted pieces of tech that unfortunately have not had the biggest impact on the game's speedrun due to varying factors. Throughout his time strat hunting, Mim would occasionally spend time looking at a certain boss fight.
It's actually pretty funny because Topo is always like a point that I come back to when I glitch hunt every time, just in case I get like any ideas to make Topo faster, because it's always just been such a slow and boring boss fight, and it would just be so cool to speed it up.
Whilst Mim had tried in the past to find anything that could result in a faster method to defeat Topo to not much success, on the 9th of October he decided to look at Topo's Wall of Fire attack. Mim inquired whether this attack occurred during every phase or whether it was excluded from the first phase. All Topo fights will see the player deal 10 points of damage to the boss before the damage cap activates, but Mim tries something different this time.
Topo only spits fire in on the later phases. He doesn't actually spit fire on the very first phase. So I was just thinking to myself, is that just the beginning of the fight? Or is that an actual first phase? So I tried it and I hit it 9 times at the first cycle, and it actually did stop him from spitting fire in the second cycle.
By simply hitting the boss 1 time less, Mim had discovered that the Wall of Fire only starts when Topo has accumulated 10 points of damage. This meant that going into phase 2, one lot of walking around the arena and 1 fireball attack was skipped, which removes a reasonable chunk from the fight. However, there was a problem ahead. With less damage dealt to the boss, Mim was on track to get a 4-phase boss fight, which would be a lot slower than the usual 3, unless he comes up with something to get around this problem. Mim hit Topo 4 times with a mid-sized egg in phase 2, dealing 8 points of damage and taking Topo to its damage cap. At this point, Topo has 7 health remaining, but the next damage cap will occur after Topo has accumulated 6 points of damage. But Mim was prepared for this. Mim was going to use the damage overflow trick that is a common occurrence in boss fights such as Captain Glare and Dark Corvo. On the final phase, Mim hit Topo once with the mid-sized egg for 2 damage, then he used all the surrounding fruit to grow his egg up to full size, whilst Topo was still vulnerable. Then finally, when the egg was maxed out, Mim hit Topo again for 3 points of damage. 5 damage accumulated. 1 more point of damage until the damage cap. Mim then hit Topo again, and... Eight damage accumulated. Topo was defeated. The boss had been rerouted. But was it faster? At first glance it may not look it. First of all, when hitting the boss 9 times, there is some slowdown there, as Topo will not automatically go back to the dinosaur, which he would do when you hit the damage cap. Instead, Topo has to get up and walk back. Then there's the case of managing 2 eggs on the final phase, which will naturally lose some time. However, Mim compared this average Topo fight with this new route, and of course, the new route saved 4.5 seconds. This was huge.
Like initially, when I found that he didn't spit fire in the second phase, I was of course instantly hyped up, because finally, after running the game for so long, you see Topo do something differently at the start, which was just, it was a different feeling like anything else I found in Billy. Because it was just this point that was just always the same and so boring, and now finally Topo does something different, and that it also seems like that it's faster immediately was so hype.
Straight away, Mim went to my Twitch channel to tell me the news, and I was immediately hooked. I was going to wait for Mim to share the comparison video he was preparing. However, due to problems with his editing software, Mim was unable to provide the video. So instead, I decided to look into it myself, with Mim describing the process as I went along. What I knew going into the boss fight was that I needed to keep my egg alive throughout the entire fight. Normally this wasn't an issue, as a popped egg would not cause any additional phases. However, if you pop the egg performing the new strategy, then an additional phase would be forced onto the player, and doing a run of Topo without your egg taking damage is harder than it looks. I was unaware at the time that a damage overflow was required, so I performed the 9-hit strategy at the start of the fight and carried on as normal, defeating the boss in 3 phases and skipping the Wall of Fire. I thought you just had to do the 9 hits and maintain your egg, so I tried the same way again, except this time, on the final wave of meatballs, my egg popped, and in my mind, I thought I had failed the strategy. However, this was not the case.
You
are not taking this seriously. We need to act now and put out the fire. Thanks for lunch, Skinner. I'll be seeing you.
Wait.
You know what? It sounds like something's burning.
Mim?
You smell it? Of course not. That must be the Loch Ness monster I've been hearing about visiting.
I was confused, Mim was confused, and so were other Billy runners in my chat. So I did the boss fight again, the same way, and... Topo died again. Mim realised what had happened. I was using a max-sized egg to deal 3 damage per hit to Topo during phase 2, whereas Mim had been using a mid-sized egg to deal 2 damage per hit. Mim would hit the damage cap of 8 with 4 hits, whilst I was accidentally doing a damage overflow by dealing 9 points of damage with 3 hits. This sent Topo into his final phase, which had an additional meatball wave, but allowed us to finish the boss fight off regardless. Because of the additional wave of meatballs, Mim felt as though I had found a safe version of the strategy that was slower, but still saved maybe 2 or 3 seconds over the normal boss fight. Regardless of that though, one thing was going through my mind. A time save is a time save. Time to do individual level runs of this level for a free world record. Me just misunderstanding Mim and getting the safe version found. Let's go. Is 113 good? It is, yeah? I entered the portal at 1:13 thinking it was a pretty good run, but not amazing, and began to do the new Topo strategy. I performed the 9 hits, let Topo run back to the dinosaur, kept my egg healthy through the second wave of meatballs, and damaged Topo to enter the final phase. I waited out the attacks and finished the boss off, and then after whiffing the emblem grab twice, I completed the level in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. 6.5 seconds faster than the previous individual level world record. Wait, what? So it turned out I entered the boss portal 1 second behind the world record, and then the 2 whiffed emblem grabs lost me about 2 seconds, so immediately we were looking at 9 seconds of time save. This made no sense. I thought this had to be some kind of fluke, so I immediately ran it back. I got another 113, so let's go for it. I got another 113 portal and began the boss fight again. With 1 whiffed emblem grab, I was able to achieve the first sub 3 minute 10 Dino 2. The safe strat wasn't a safe strat after all, it was the faster strat, and with that, my hope and smile had returned. Topo has been solved! Holy shit, bro. Like, out of all the bosses, Topo, man, what the f***? This is insane.
Emblems, if you get all the emblems.
You get that rewarding feeling of getting all the emblems.
What? Okay. Don't look at my stream.
Oh my god!
But
it turned out that myself and Mim forgot to account for the fact that Topo goes into maximum overdrive during the final phase. Mim's strategy was actually losing time because of this, as his third Topo phase was moving at a slower rate. My strategy on the other hand played like the original boss fight, but without the wall of fire and the extra walk phase. This alongside the fact that I didn't need to do the overflow strategies meant that the new fast Topo strat saved around 9 seconds. This is the biggest amount of time saved from an individual strategy in 3 years, and no one would have expected it to come from Topo of all places. When the game's best player, MonkeySMB, was made aware of the strategy, he went to test it himself and concluded that the strategy in fact saved 10 to 11 seconds. And he also got a new individual level world record of 3 minutes and 6 seconds. Topo is now cool. In order to achieve a good time in this boss, you can no longer switch your brain off. You need to manage each phase carefully so that you can maximise the time save. But that's not the best part of all of this. After a long drought, Billy Hatcher speedruns have a new toy to play with, and because of this, people have gone back to grinding the game, including myself. My any percent PB is only 7 seconds away from achieving the coveted 103 milestone. So if I can include this strategy and play on pace for my PB, I can finally achieve a long-awaited goal. Mim is only 6 seconds away from this too, so Topo has reinvigorated him as well. Tylltoons is grinding for a 105 and Topo puts him one step closer to that too. And of course, this puts MonkeySMB one step closer to achieving a godlike time of a 102 in any percent. If you enjoy watching speedruns of this game, now is an amazing time to do so. I have linked a bunch of Billy runners in the description, so make sure you follow them and catch their streams, as it is an exciting time to be a Billy runner, especially with the upcoming Billy Hatcher Any Percent tournament happening on November 4th to November 17th over on twitch.tv/Sauceless events. This is the second tournament for the game that they have hosted, and this one is going to be bigger than the first, so make sure you follow the channel to not miss a single second. This niche 21-year-old game may have never died, but this funny little mole has sparked a new wave of excitement in this game, and for that, all I have to say is thank you, Topo.
Listening to you read donos, you're such a lovely person, and thank you for teaching the world about
Fast Topo.
Thank you for watching this video. These videos take a long time to make, so I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel to show support. You can also support the channel further by liking and commenting on this video to help it get recognised by the YouTube algorithm. Also, please check out my Twitch channel too over at twitch.tv/Chiron. I have been taking a more content-centered approach to my streams there too, so there is always something happening when I am live. I also plan to make some videos about the content I am making over there, so if you want to be a part of that, then you can join in with the chat. Me and my community will be happy to see you there. Finally, thank you to Mim for finding this strategy. This wouldn't have been possible without him. I will leave the video here, go follow Sacer, and I will see you there in November. Goodbye. But for real though, why is this guy called Moles, and why is this guy called Topo? Is it because Topo is literally Spanish for mole? No, that's not right. It's because I'm on Topo your mum, innit?